Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, in this Heal on Purpose segment, I'm still in our Healing Emotional Abuse series, and today we're going to talk about identifying if you were raised in an emotionally abusive household. A lot of times people don't realize they are actually raised in emotionally abusive environments, and that's why they are attracting emotional abusers or have become emotionally abusive themselves. So when you are raised in an emotionally abusive household, you actually can become tolerant for emotional abuse, or you're going to give out what you got. So stay tuned as we cover the identifying if you were raised in an emotionally abusive household in this next segment.
Chains are gone. It's who you are. It's who you are. When chains are gone. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I
All right, you guys, I'm going to dive right in. But before I do, I want to say this really quickly is that as I'm giving out the signs of emotional abuse in your childhood, the signs you were raised in an emotionally abusive environment, I also want you to identify if you are yourself passing down emotional abuse. Okay. And then also, while you're listening to this is a good time to see how you became vulnerable to emotional abuse. Or if you're listening to this and you know you are indeed an emotional abuser, this is good for you too, because you can see where I got this from. This was nurtured in me some type of way. And if you are indeed passing it down to your children, you can see the negative effects it has on their mental health and their self-esteem. You want your children to thrive. You want your children to get up and do better than you. But they can't do that if you're constantly putting them down. Just like it affects you. If you had emotionally abusive parents, it affects your children. And you make them vulnerable to emotionally abusive situations if it is not stopped and addressed, and saying, I was wrong, I should have not did that. Putting your pride aside and changing your behavior. Okay. I know that parenting is not an easy task. I'm a parent myself. Raising children is challenging and it is intimidating, period. Dot. We as parents can have a lapse in judgment. One thing I realize in parenting is that sometimes we take on our parents. Well, that worked for me, but it may have worked. What your parents did may have worked to get you to do what they wanted you to do, but what suffered as a result of it? What suffered as a result of it? And we want to make sure that when we are disciplining our children, that they are getting a healthy discipline, not one that's going to cause them to second guess their worth. And emotional abuse is hard to detect sometimes because we don't mean to hurt our children. We don't mean, like, why ain't you doing this in school? Just being stupid. Stupid emotional abuse. Because the children perceives what you're saying a lot of times, especially depending on what age they are, that they really are being stupid. And although you're not meaning to that as emotional abuse, or you screaming at your child, or you threatening your child, whatever it is, as parents, they are taking on that, their perception. And it's all about perception. It's all about how they see it. It's all about their fears. So we want to make sure that we are disciplining our children because we needed discipline that way. Disciplining our children in a way that in a healthy way, that they are getting the correct message. And when they don't, even when you're saying really harsh things, that's emotional abuse. it's emotional abuse. One of the, to me, I'm going to say this. One of the first signs your parents were emotionally abusive is they had narcissistic personality. It was a narcissistic parent. Okay. This is the epitome of emotional manipulation. These parents are passive aggressive, they withdraw, they neglect, they make threats, their children are walking on eggshells, they can never do nothing right. They set extremely high expectations. It's like telling a 3-year-old to go get the pot out, the thing, put eggs in it and fry it up. And when they're not doing that, they're constantly coming down on them, but they know that child can't meet that expectation, but they do it anyway. They do it and they threaten the child if they can't meet it, what they're going to do to them. So this child is freaking terrified. That's emotional abuse. Verbal abuse, of course, most people know is emotional abuse. And I know that being a parent can be frustrating. I know that they kids can, make us angry, just like your parents, when they were angry and they said things to you, again, those words, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, you'll never be this and never, it's because they're angry. And a lot of times people only give you what they got, so a lot of parents that are angry are emotional abusers. Well, they were emotionally abused, so they're passing that down. So if your parents used verbal abuse, that was emotional that was signs of emotional abuse. And if you're using it, it's signs of emotional abuse. The best way to understand if your parents were being verbally abusive is to go back and think about the time they chastised you. Okay, just think about the words that they used. Did you feel degraded? You know what I'm saying? Did you feel like you were always being criticized? Did you feel shame? Did it make you hang your head? That's a sign that you were being emotionally abused. Not in, I really did a bad thing and I didn't want to disappoint my mom, but no, I did a bad thing. I'm stupid. I'm never any good. If that made you feel that way, that's emotional abuse. Let me tell you, verbal abuse, emotional abuse is like a form of brainwashing and poison to the child's self-esteem. Because in their young years, their subconscious mind is being developed. And what you tell them, they believe. And how they perceive their situations is what they believe. So if they're perceiving that they're nobody, if they're perceiving that they're inadequate, if they're perceiving that they're not loved, and they're hanging their head up, taking their head down, they could never do anything right, then their subconscious mind is being shaped to believe that. And as they get older, their fears will rule their lives just like it ruled yours if you were raised in emotional abusive situation. So we have to make sure that just like it didn't work for us, it doesn't work for our children. Parents that dealt with a lot of high and low mood swings. I know everybody has mood swings, but it's a whole nother situation when it comes to children. And children, their psychic is being affected because parents have these mood swings. Again, if you're always walking on eggshells, you're nervous, you're scared, you don't know which mood your mama in, what boat she on today. You just don't know. That was emotional abuse. And if you're having these depression moments and then high anxiety moments, and 1 minute you're good and the next minute you're not, 1 minute you're yelling at your kids and screaming at them and talking to them like they're crazy, and the next minute you're loving on them, that's emotional abuse. And if your parents did it, that's emotional abuse. Parents who withhold compliments. The child who, if your parents, you brought home a good report card or you brought home a certificate and they just was like, you should have went and cleaned your room. That's emotional abuse. Emotional abusive parents do not like giving their children credit, even when they deserve it. In fact, they'll be critical. They'll be critical. And so the way to figure out if your parents were emotionally abusive is, did they talk to you negatively all the time? Did they continually make negative comments about like how you dressed, what your hair looked like? And you know what I'm saying? You shouldn't wear that. That doesn't make you look good. That actually makes you look fat. I don't know what you're wearing that for. It ain't gonna change the way you look. Go take your ugly self in there and do this. Take your trifling self in there and take a shower. You know what I'm saying? That's emotional abuse. It is. And what it does is make a child again feel inadequate, like they're never enough. Um, One of another sign is when parents hold the basic needs of a child. Now you know that's emotional abuse. So if a parent is not giving them their food they need, or they're feeding them when they're way too hungry, if your parents made you sit and wait for hours to eat because they didn't feel like getting up, that's cook. That's emotional abuse. If they didn't buy you enough panties, not because they really couldn't afford it, they chose to put their money somewhere else instead of putting it back in the house to help you. And I know sometimes we want to give our parents excuses, but trust me, a pair of panties just didn't cost that much. And I'm not saying your parents, because I don't know what your situation was, but there are times that parents withhold that from their children. They do not make their children priority, and that is emotional abuse. That is emotional abuse. Not giving a child their basic necessities is just abuse, period. It is. It's neglectful. Now, I'll say this. So now we just talked about, parents withholding the basic necessities. Then you have parents who go overboard. So parents who are showering their children with gifts, showering their children with gifts, but they expect these children to do whatever they say. Now, this is the thing. They're controlling them with these gifts. You are loyal to me and me only because I make sure you have everything you need. I know some parents like that, and that's crazy. So they spoil them so that they can have, and they even take this into their adulthood. They give them stuff, and when they call them, you better bounce hard. You better get over here because I bought you the world. And then I've watched children be like, Mom, I don't even want that. They bringing stuff over and the children sending it back. I didn't never understand that for years until I begin to understand emotional abuse. Like, she's just trying to help you. And then as I got older too. So once I got older, I realized that parents can buy stuff to keep you under their thumb. Okay. And it makes a child, first of all, it makes them needy. And it keeps them from being able to thrive on their own. It causes them to be dependent on their parents. Even when they get older, we're supposed to be dependent on our parents, but not codependent on our parents. And when we get older, we're supposed to be able to disconnect in a healthy way, the way we're supposed to disconnect. But when parents give and give and give, children have a hard time disconnecting from their parents. So they're being ruled by their parents. Okay. And these parents expect you to choose them first. No matter what, you're going to choose me. I don't care what your needs are. You're going to choose me. My needs are way more important than they try to throw you on this guilt trip because you didn't come flying over there to change their tire when Sally needed you at and she didn't need her tire changed right then and there. You know what I'm saying? Dad is somewhere, he could have done it. But no, I want you to do it. And oh my God, I've done all this stuff for you. And now you can't come help me. But even when parents don't, they'll guilt trip their children into making them choose them first. Okay. Another sign you were raised in an emotionally abusive situation is when your parents refuse to validate your emotions. Emotional abuse is a one-way street, and abusive parents control or exercise power on their child's emotions, but it ends there. They don't care about how you feel. They invalidate, look at that crybaby over there, just crying for no apparent reason. If a child is crying, there's a reason. No matter what the reason is, there's a reason. And so, but as they get older, look at you, ain't nothing but a crybaby. If somebody flicks your child and it hurt them, oh, sit yourself down. That didn't hurt. You don't know if it hurt them or not. But always invalidating their emotions when they're crying or when they're feeling a certain way is wrong. And it lets a child believe that they don't have the right to feel what they feel. And if that was your parents and you realize they did that to you, it's wrong. Again, and if you're doing that to your children, you're not helping them. And I know this could be done innocently. Like, I'm not trying to hurt my child. I just want them to know they ain't got to cry for every daggone thing. But there's a way we want to get that message across to our children, convey that message without making them feel like their emotions are not important. The same way you needed that from your parents, your children need that from you. Okay. Parents who deliberately isolate their children. These parents are the ones who, I'm the only one that really loves you. Your grandmother likes all the other children. She can't stand you. She picks everybody else over you. Aunt Sally over there, she thinks she better than us. And I'm the only one that's gonna stand up for us. I'm the only one. Your daddy over there ain't doing nothing for you. And here I'm the only one sacrificing myself. That is emotional abuse. When children don't feel like they have this support system outside of mom, and they have this village, and they feel isolated only to you, that's horrible for a child to feel that way. Parents who have to choose their kids as friends, or when their friends come over, they're just totally rude to them on purpose, embarrassing their children, all because they want control. That's emotional abuse. Another form of emotional abuse, if your child or if you were totally terrified of your parents. Your parents were just outright abusive. You didn't know what they were going to say or do. You didn't know how to please them, again, kind of in that narcissistic parent, but you were terrified of your parents. They laid it on you hard when they laid it on you, and you couldn't speak up for yourself. You didn't know, whatever they said went. You do like that, don't you? Yes, ma'am. All right. Never, you were scared. You woke up scared. You didn't know if they was going to come in the room. You didn't know because your parents had this emotional imbalance, that, like I said, them high mood swings or whatever caused them to be terrifying. If you felt terrified, then you were in an emotional abusive situation. And if you're doing that to your children, running out, screaming and acting a fool, and causing reaction out of your children, you're emotionally abusive too. And if you didn't like it, they don't like it either. Okay, parents that tease their children all the time, constantly, subtly putting them down, jokingly, so they say. Look at you over there with your big self. She's so fat, this, that, and the other. Look at you. You're so black, or you look at all that redness. Whatever it is, the parents will tease their children. I've heard parents tease their children hard. And I couldn't understand it. One time I told my nephew, him and my kids were playing, and that my nephew was like my son, and he's like my kids' brother, like their eldest brother. And I said, I told him, I said, listen, sweetheart, we have to be careful that we're not crossing lines when we are, he called it riffing or whatever they call it, ripping, however, each other. And I'm like, because those words have power. And we just want to be, oh, auntie, I'm just playing. And the truth was, I knew he was just playing, but I wanted to make sure that be careful, because I'm watching their faces, and they ain't not taking it like that. They're really humiliated for real. And so we wanted to be careful. And parents, we can be the same way, And so I always made it, in my household, we didn't call each other out of our names. And that joking stuff, I put it into it very quickly. Now, they did it when they weren't around me, but that, put it, because it really does cause issues. Neglect. Neglect is another sign. If your parents neglected you, it is one of the classic signs of abuse. You need to feel wanted. You need to feel wanted. And when you felt like you wasn't wanted, and you felt abandoned, your parents neglected you. Maybe you was always over grandma's house. Mom just always had something to do, and she neglected you, period. She was late picking you up. You was at home by yourself all the time. Dinner was not really never on time, or maybe she ordered your dinner. However they did it, you felt neglected. You felt neglected. Maybe your parents, put you in foster care, or maybe you ended up in foster care because your parents maybe were on drugs or alcohol, or just simply had high, emotional issues, depression, anxiety, and they left themselves in the room. I know I've have a few clients where their parents didn't do, I guess, anything wrong per se, but their parents were just neglectful emotionally. They lived in their rooms. They came home, they fed them, they went in their rooms, and they were not available to their children. And that's emotional abuse. Parents who constantly compare their children to other people, even their own siblings. Look at Sally. Now she goes to school and do her work, and here you are. You can't even do this. Look at Sally. She's on the basketball team, and she's making points, and you just sitting over there and can't get the ball in the daggone basket. That is emotional abuse. And not only that, you cause major sibling rivalry. You make your children feel like you don't love them unless they perform well. That's emotional abuse. They need to feel like you love and care about them unconditionally. I know Sally is putting them balls in the basket, but baby, you all right. Just keep trying. You got this. Show them some form or whatever you need to show them to get it in there. And then, once you realize they're not strong in that area, maybe introduce them to a new hobby. And if that happened to you and you wonder why you're so competitive, or you wonder why you won't get up to thrive because you're looking at Sally's work and like, you know what, I'll never measure up to Sally, so I'm not going to even do it. And you come to that because you were being compared to all the time. So either one or the other outcomes, it's not a good outcome because of being compared. Now, this next one I'm going to say. I'm going to say this real quick. I'm going to put my claws in this one for you guys. Invasion of privacy. Let me say this first. Children do deserve some measure of privacy. When they're getting dressed, they're in the bathroom, they need to know that they have boundaries, and that somebody looking in places that they shouldn't be looking in, or exposing places that shouldn't be exposed. That privacy is important, that we set boundaries and we teach them boundaries around that privacy. I have one clause and I stand by it. I stand by it with my clients. I stood by it with my children, and I don't change it. If you live in my house, we don't lock doors. Now, when you get older, we knock on doors. We don't just walk in your room. And if the door is locked, you let me know you're locking the door. But 9 times out of 10, I should be able to walk in that room. When you turn 18, if you pay bills, you're more than welcome to unlock your door. The rule in my house is we have open doors. The rule in my house is I have passwords to everybody's phone. The rule in my house is I have total access to your room. The one thing that parents can do, though, that makes this abusive is when they catch their children in an act and then begin to belittle them because of it. Yeah, I saw you writing your journal to Jimmy, and y'all went over there and kissed, and here you are acting like a little slut, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, I didn't even mean no harm by that, instead of sitting down saying, I understand you like somebody, or whatever, method that's healthy, so that they can feel open to talk to you and be honest, so that you can prevent some headaches down the line. Okay, one of the things I did, and I'm just offering this as parental advice, but you can see where your privacy was being compromised when you were growing up. Maybe your parents walked in your room and wouldn't tell you, and you're getting undressed, and somebody saw you too many times, and it really bothered you. That's emotional abuse. But for parents to look through your stuff and make sure that there's nothing, no Columbine-ish stuff is happening in the room because mom's too busy believing in children rights. I don't know what she was doing, but in my house, the Columbine wasn't gonna happen. I'm telling you that right now. It wasn't the first thing I saw. I would have pistol whipped the kid. I mean, at the end of the day, that I don't abuse or not, I wasn't having it. You ain't gonna tell me you gonna go off and kill 10 people. You was not gonna put my name in no craziness, and I wasn't gonna let you take off nobody else's children's life because I'm busy knowing what you're doing. I am making I'm making it my priority to see what you're up to. And that's okay. And I just wanted to put that clause in there because parents really don't know how to choose between well, Sally's supposed to have her space and her privacy. Yeah, this is your house. And Sally done been to the abortion clinic 2 times. Or Sally done met up with an old man down the street because you're not looking in her phone. Sex trafficking is crazy as I don't know what. We ain't got time to play with Sally in privacy right now. Sally has to come under these rules. I have to keep you safe at all costs. And that's just it. That's all. But we do it in a healthy way. So you have to find a healthy balance. Parents that snoop through things and check journals and calendars to find information, but calling the child you sneaky this, you that, and calling names because they found something, that's emotional abuse. Instead of really dealing with it and redirecting a child so they make a better choice, that's healthy. Okay, so you don't want to be the accusive parent because you found something. I know that took a minute, but I really wanted to, just give my view on that. Parents who are anxiety driven, they are anxious all the time. They're always anxious. When parents can't, if your parents couldn't control their anxiety and they leaned on you, they always leaned on you to take care of them, and they took up your space to be a child. They robbed you of your childhood because they had issues. That's emotional abuse. That is emotional abuse. You just don't know which way to go with that. You're being the parent to the parent. That's emotional abuse. Um, Children who are emotionally abused and neglected, they find themselves in similar situations when they get older. So if this is you and you've listened to the stuff and you're in an emotionally abusive situation, you're probably saying, now I see why I was attracted to my emotional abuser. Because it sings to your soul, even the wounds of your soul. You can connect with that. That is your dysfunctional norm. Okay? And it causes adults or the children of these emotional abusive parents to have adult anxiety. They become very codependent. They're introverts. So I'm an introvert. I ain't gonna lie. I'm an introvert. But I just think I was born that way. I was like that at 7. I did not like to go out and be around everybody. I liked to be in my room playing with my dolls while my sisters and brothers were out playing. I just had a personality. But also, when you are under highly emotional abusive environment, it can cause you to be totally withdrawn. Okay, and it can cause you to want to be by yourself all the time. Your children's formative years are important because they shape your emotional and social skills. And when you've been in a emotionally abusive environment, then it limits you. It limits you. It is important that we offer healthy environments so that our children can thrive. Some people become attention seeking. They've been ignored all their childhood. And so this is, now they're seeking attention in their adulthood. And so they do things to, justify or suffering or seek attention. So, let me say this too. Parents are not just emotionally abusive because they choose to be. They have issues. Some parents struggle with depression, substance abuse. If had a parent who had a child with disability, maybe they were a single parent, maybe they were really poor. They didn't have the community support that they needed. Whatever. All of these situations can cause parents to be emotionally abusive. Again, some don't even realize they're being emotionally abusive. There's some parents that do and they try to make up for it. Like, I know I was too harsh. I'm so sorry. But they keep doing it. They're reinforcing your perception to be right. They're reinforcing your fears. I ain't gonna lie. I believe, and I know this to be a fact, but a lot of parents abuse their children physically and emotionally because they just have horrible parenting skills. They don't know how to get their children to behave, so they resort to aggression, and they're frustrated. So we want to make sure that. Well, first let me say this: if you've identified your parents in all of this, if you've identified your parents in all of this, like, oh my God, that was my mom. This is why I have unhealthy relationships with other people. This is why I got a low self-esteem, or I'm real pessimistic. I'm always looking negatively on stuff, or you repress your emotions. Again, this is why I'm always looking for somebody to give me some attention, or I'm a people pleaser. I have this need to be accepted. Um, all of those things, because you were in an emotionally abusive environment. I want you to know you can heal from that. The first thing we have to do when we realize, now that you realize it, right? You're like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is why. This is why I'm going through this man. This is why I'm accepting this. I have been nurtured to accept this. The first thing you have to do is forgive your emotional abuser. A lot of times your parents just really don't know. So forgive them. Forgive them. Mom, I forgive you. You say it to yourself. You don't got to say it to your mama. Just, I forgive you, Dad. I forgive y'all. I forgive you. I'm going to let this go. Then if you found yourself as a parent being emotionally abusive, change. There is nothing like a person that has chosen to go in another direction. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm changing my behavior. I'm going to look up some new tactics to discipline my children, and I won't be found in this place anymore. Number 3, forgive yourself for being in emotional abusive situations. I forgive myself for allowing myself to be in these situations, and have compassion on yourself, because that was really cultivated in you as a child. So have some compassion on yourself. And then you find a way to woman up or man up in that situation, or walk away from it. Because now you know it's been revealed to you. Now you can heal it. Okay. So I hope that you guys were blessed through this podcast. And you see now why you are in the accepting emotional abuse. And also, if you were a emotional abusive parent, and now I can take some steps to I can take some steps to rectify the situation I have with my child. I can create a better healthy environment for my children by walking away from emotional abuse, and also for me not to be an emotional abuser. Listen, if you have any questions for me, reach out to me at reach out to me at athenathecoach@gmail.com, or you can also reach out to me at www.athenathecoach.com if you would like to schedule a session. Say, Athena, you know what? I'm hearing this, but I need some help. I need you to help coach me through this. I would love to help coach you through this. Below this video, you will see a link to my book, I Healed on Purpose. This book will help you to heal from your childhood emotional wounds. It will help you to cast down. First, it'll let you identify the wounds that you are suffering from, that was developed in your childhood. You will identify it, and not only that, you're going to identify the negative thought patterns that comes with that abuse. We're going to tear down that old belief system, and then we're going to introduce the truth to you, and you'll be able to create the lifestyle that you really want to live, because your fear filters will be removed, and then you can just move forward, because now your vision of what you really want and need in your life is going to be so clear to you that your vision is going to create the lifestyle you need to thrive. Again, thanks for listening, and you have a wonderful day.
Chains are gone.